Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action.
Hi y'all, this is Jerry Williams, aka TV Jerry. A few weeks back, I mentioned that the Bird was getting new seats for the balcony. Well, they're scheduled for completion by March 31st and will be open for patrons for the showing of Howl's Moving Castle that evening and for all future shows. The center section downstairs was the first replacement project, and work on the side sections will begin in May.
It was an entirely different kind of aircraft, one that had never even been envisioned before, one that could fly effectively at the speed of a bullet at the edge of space.
It was on the leading edge of everything. Tires, the heating, the fuel, everything on it was one of a kind.
For something that was not incremental, it fundamentally changed not only how we thought about collecting reconnaissance, but it actually changed what we knew at the time about aerospace design and aerospace dynamics.
A lot of younger folks are shocked to hear that this thing was designed and built in the 60s.
That's the thing that still amazes people today. It inspires them, but if it inspires them, it teaches them. And all the people who worked on it are gone, but they really left us with an incredible legacy.
That was an excerpt from a documentary on the famed SR-71 plane that was nicknamed the Blackbird because of its black exterior. There's one hanging at the Science Museum of Virginia, and local producer Todd Hervey created this documentary on the incredible history of this groundbreaking aircraft, or should I say barrier-breaking. It's called Blackbird, Legacy of Innovation, and was on PBS stations around the country from 2018 to 21 and is now streaming. I'll be talking with Todd about the genesis of the project all the way to the screening at the Air Force Academy.
Sifter Review of the Week.
Odessa on Hulu. This is yet another post-apocalyptic tale, but with one major difference. It's a sci-fi musical with a rock score. A farm girl, Sadie Sink, best known as Max on Stranger Things, leaves home to become a rambler, traversing the wasteland with her valued guitar. When she meets her one true love, Kelvin Harrison, she's forced to use her musical power to save him and the world. Sink anchors the film with her conviction and lovely voice. There are other unique characters, including a scary Regina Hall and a weird, wild Murray Bartlett. This comes from the mind of writer-director Jeremy Jasper, who also created the unique film about a girl rapper, Patty Cakes. His taste for unusual individuals and interesting situations plays out again here. Jasper also composed a score with Jason Bennett, and their songs are catchy with easy, tuneful melodies. Production designer Scott Dugan created a psychedelic, post-punk junkyard aesthetic that's uncharacteristically accented by glowing electronics. This movie may inspire a cult following because of its bold approach and sometimes eye-popping production. By the way, this film has a local connection in producer Michael Gottwald, who also produced Beast of the Southern Wild. I gave Odessa 4 out of 5 stars. Todd Hervey, what is Fuel Creative?
We're a video production company, kind of script to screen, but we work with primarily corporations, done corporate video since 2003. Actually, today's our anniversary.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yes. St. Patrick's Day, be 22 years.
And is that green you're wearing? I can't tell.
It is, but that wasn't intentional. It was probably dark.
Of course
when I picked
not.
this out.
So then there's this company called 19 Red. What's that?
Yes. So 19 Red came about when we did the Blackbird documentary because we realized if we're going to do original content, it should probably be separated from what Fuel does traditionally.
Uh-huh.
Some of that's for liability reasons. Some of it's just because we didn't know how long Fuel would last. 19 Red can be its own thing. And that was our first original production. So we did it under that moniker.
Which brings us obviously to the subject of Blackbird. How did that project come about?
Well, I've been an aviation enthusiast my whole life. Yeah. So what happened was we moved here. My favorite plane of all time is the SR-71 Blackbird. And if you remember, there was one at the airport.
Right.
Parked out front, which is really rare because they only built 33 of them.
Right.
And I'd never seen one in real life. Right around the time we were talking about doing original production, I saw in the paper that they were going to be moving it. And I thought, let's just follow it, moving it. But I went and met with the people at the Science Museum of Virginia. I didn't really care if they were going to pay me. I just was telling them I wanted to chronicle this and I wanted permission. When I didn't hear from them, I read in the paper that a company called Worldwide Aircraft was going to be moving it. So I found them on the internet and I called the president of it, a guy named Marty Bertura. And
Right.
his only business was moving airplanes. That's all he did. He said, "Yeah, I don't care if you shoot it, you know." So I was shooting most of the disassembly with Marty and then eventually got in contact with the Science Museum and they let me continue following it on its journey.
Which turned into quite an extensive documentary. But I want to ask you about one thing. The very beginning we see it, and we see it, it's kind of the graphic element all the way through, is I guess that's an auto pen?
My first idea, the whole concept for doing it was around the fact that we were doing all these corporate videos and they mentioned the word innovation. And the more you read about it, I'm like, they built this plane in late 50s, early 60s. It was designed and built. This is all slide rulers. At the same time, I'm doing all these corporate videos and they're talking about innovate this and innovate that. And a lot of innovations are what you call incremental improvement. I'm
Right.
thinking, this is still the fastest plane ever built to this day. Let's really talk about what innovation is, like a huge leap ahead. So my initial idea, I wanted to have this thing inscribing bingo balls, right? You know, it's
right.
like buzzword bingo. And I got a hold of this thing and I had to modify it. It was called the egg bot. It was for drawing on Easter eggs
Oh, right. Okay.
because I didn't have a good way to inscribe on ping pong balls. And now I have a bunch of ping pong balls too. But in the end, that I think that was a little too right down the gut in terms of buzzword bingo. Then I would have to make another tie into that. And when I was on the website for where I got the egg bot, they had one called the AxiDraw, which is it's exactly like a 3D printer. So it's X and Y coordinates, and you can use a pen. I just thought that would be a good transitional element.
Yeah, and it was cool. It was interesting.
Surprise guest drop in.
And I want to talk to you about going to the CIA and going to Skunk Works and some of those things. But somebody wanted to drop in and say hello.
Hello. Glad to join you.
Colonel Buzz Carpenter, welcome to Sifter for the Year.
Buzz.
Footnote.
Colonel Buzz Carpenter has flown numerous missions in the SR-71 and is now a docent at the Udvar-Hazy Center of the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum at Dulles Airport.
I am delighted to be here so we can talk about the great achievements of Todd, and what a pleasure it was, Todd, to work with you and to see the whole thing unfold. I think as you went through the process, you captured the essence of what was taking place to bring an airplane like that into being. And you and I went to the Air Force Academy because the superintendent thought that, and rightly so, that the innovation that you had captured was something that every cadet ought to see and reflect on. So I was glad in some small ways I could have helped you on that adventure, because I think what you created, the award-winning movie.
Well, I want to ask you one question, Colonel Carpenter. It hit me when I first was watching the documentary and I saw your name come up. I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm sure this has happened to you. Have you been confused before with Scott Carpenter and Buzz Aldrich, both of whom are astronauts, obviously?
Most certainly. People come up to me and they'll ask me, because they combine the two,
Right.
and they go, how was it going to the moon? And I said, no, you got, you're taking exactly what you said there. You're combining Scott Carpenter with Buzz Aldrin.
Right, right. How did Todd get a hold of you? And what did you first think when he called you up and said, hey, I want to do this movie?
I wasn't sure exactly where he wanted to go, to be truthful.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how Todd exactly got in contact with me. Obviously he did.
Do you remember Todd?
Yeah, and I saw your name, and then I just started Googling names because there's not an unbelievable number of pilots, right?
There's only 85 of us, and probably about 15 of them have already died.
Right. And I came across your name, and I started looking for people that weren't that far away. And then I saw that you were a docent at the Udvar-Hazy Center, if I'm not saying that right. I never do.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Good. I'm glad you said it, Todd, because I didn't know either. So.
It's the Smithsonian's, what they call the National Hangar out at Dulles. So it's got a Blackbird. It's the one that you see in the Transformers movie.
Uh-huh. So let me ask you one final question here, Buzz. What was it like to fly in the Blackbird?
It was incredible. You had to be a volunteer. You had to have over 2,000 hours of flying time, 6 to 8 years.
Wow.
Go to that simulator you saw down in Texas, Todd, when it was working. And it was
Yep.
It was the first computer simulator I'd ever seen. No visual, but it flew just like the airplane. Jerry, over time, there were only 85 of us ever flew the airplane.
Right.
11 at any time because of the complexity and the expense. I had over 230 flights. It really changed my life. It was a great airplane. They trusted you. You flew sensitive missions, but you felt like, you were the one in charge. And just one last thing. When you're up there flying, it's really quiet because you're traveling at 3 times the speed of sound and all the sound's behind you.
Wow.
And you're in a spacesuit. I mean, it's an absolutely spectacular sight. You can see 350 miles in any direction. At night, the sky is absolutely magic because 90% of the stars you can see up there,
wow,
you can't see down here because they're so faint. And that's why you have space telescopes.
Well, I appreciate you dropping in. It's a fascinating documentary, and you certainly were a big part of it.
I'll say one word before Buzz, before he drops off, is that when you ask what Buzz brings to the documentary, I'd say it's the same thing he brought to any of the talks I've done with him. He can cover the technical really well. In the documentary, because Rich Graham wrote so many books on it, he's more or less the play-by-play, but Buzz is the color commentary. Because he tells, he's such a good storyteller. And when he does that, it gives you a sense of what it was really like to fly it. When he talks about it, you have to release the brakes when you're starting the engines because otherwise the tires will pull off the hubs, what I mean? That kind of stuff. He really gives you a sense of what it's like, and he's such a good storyteller. And to get from here to there,
I'm looking forward for you and I getting together for that science thing whenever the Richmond Science Museum figures out we can both be there.
Thanks, Buzz. Appreciate
All right,
it.
thank you, Buzz.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for inviting me, and take care now, Todd. Look forward to seeing you this fall.
Okay, thanks for adding the color.
You bet.
Talk to you later.
Bye now.
Obviously, Todd, you never got to fly in a Blackbird, did you?
No. I'd never even seen one in flight. They were grounded, I want to say, in 1994. I even talked to Sean about that. Sean, I can't say enough about how he changed that documentary. This is Sean Rowe from the CIA. You'll know he's like the last word in the documentary, and I remember him saying the line that he said, and he had so much passion and it was so good that we were shooting in a dark room. He finishes and he says, "Did you get what you need?" And I'm like, "Well, you can't see me, but there's a single tear going down the side of my eye."
Oh, wow. Wow.
That almost in itself was just a really interesting experience shooting there.
That was my next question is, what was it like getting in and getting permission and all that stuff at the CIA?
It was interesting because we had to do background checks for the 3 of us that went in. And then you had to itemize every single piece of gear you're bringing in down to the batteries.
Wow, yeah.
On a spreadsheet that says make, model, country of origin.
Wow.
Media that you shoot on has to be in its original packaging when you bring it in. They inspect it. You have to leave your phones in the car. No communications whatsoever. That stays in the car. But they were fantastic. And it was Dave Park. Was one of the shooters that was there, and then Ryan Witt. I don't know if you know Ryan. So the 3 of us went in, and the little anecdote I'll tell you is, like I said, you can't have your own phone. We didn't even know there was a guy sitting in the back of the room.
I was going to ask you. I figured they had to have somebody
yeah.
there.
There was somebody with you all the time, and we had a liaison that was there, but Ryan turned on one of the lights, and this voice from the back of the room just says, "That light has Bluetooth." And we turned around, and there's a guy. Now we could see him because he's holding an iPad. I could see it reflecting his glasses. So he was checking for signals all the time.
Wow.
And I think he might have been just there to observe, but he was like their IT or one of those guys. I don't know what he did. And then Ryan kind of said, "Well, I don't have my phone." And I was just like, "Turn it off." Don't argue with this.
Really, turn it off. So I guess you went without that light.
Yeah. And I actually was fortunate to they toured me through the museum. It was fascinating. It had all this stuff in it, and it's all declassified stuff, but it's only there, and it's more or less for the morale of the people there to see, here's stuff we pulled off that nobody's going to know about, or that, and there's all kind of little stuff in there.
There was so much historical footage, and I know you had to dig all over the place for some of that. How did you find it, or what was the hardest piece to land, pun intended?
Yeah. A lot of that I did was from the National Archives. I got some from the CIA directly. I got a little bit from Lockheed, and Lockheed also supplied the old photographs that you see. And then some of the other stuff, and they're the same shots you'll see in any documentary about it. The really like sexy looking stuff that's color.
Right.
That was for a terrible Hollywood movie It was a really bad concept. I want to say it was late 70s, early 80s. I have to look up the name. So they shot a bunch of gorgeous 35, in some cases 70 millimeter footage of it.
Wow.
But they did shoot really sexy stuff of like guys getting into the plane. And then that part was released to the Air Force and to Lockheed. So they have that. That's where I got that.
Obviously, you shot the install at the Science Museum when they transferred the plane. How many days? Because sometimes there's just time lapse. It just goes on forever.
Yeah, it was the better part of a year. I was actually not there the first day it moved in, but I didn't have permission from the Science Museum. So it's really funny. And I have a great relationship with them now. But I was actually out in Montana on a shoot. And I had Dave Park. I hired him for the day just to follow that because I couldn't shoot it. And keep in mind, this entire project was on our dime. So I'm hiring a guy because I knew I couldn't miss that. And I'm at the airport, and Dave calls and says, I just got kicked out of the Science Museum. Because we didn't have permission. I had told them he was going to follow it in. They were just doing their job. But at the same time, I cut together what I had of my first interview with other stuff. And they were kind of like, oh, yeah, this will be good for us too. Some of the time lapse we did, but a lot of it that you see in there is Jonathan Hamer, Richmond time lapse. He was contracted by them to shoot the time lapse of it.
Okay.
And we did a fair amount of our own time lapse. Yeah, because they had to remove part of the building. And more of it was building the platform that it goes on, and they actually had to retrofit that entire room. They had to put new columns in with supports to hang it because it's the only one in the world that's hanging.
The closing credits in the film, I always watch all of those. It's dedicated to Cole and Cameron. Who are they and why did you pick that?
At the time, they were younger, but they are now my soon-to-be 21-year-old twins.
Wow.
Boy-girl twins. Pam and I like to say they don't share anything but a birthday because they're completely different people. But my son's a huge science nut, and he actually came on some of the shoots with me and really liked that. And Cameron is an aspiring filmmaker who is she's going to be a film major at Penn State University. So she's at the Belisario School, which is where Pam went.
This started on VPM and then it went nationwide on PBS and now it's streaming. How did that transition take place?
Originally, we knew it was going to air just here, local VPM, which was an interesting way that got me access to a lot of those places. To be honest, I don't think the CIA and the Skunk Works would have agreed to the interview if they knew it was only airing locally, but I didn't lie. I just said it's going to be on PBS. And then there is for more or less like a syndication fair type thing at PBS. And John Felton said, hey, I'd like to enter it into that. And that's a process where American Public Television, which provides programming for all the PBS stations, will look at some independently produced things. And they picked it up, American Public Television did. And that means any station can agree to air it.
And how many did end up airing?
235 or something like that.
Wow. And do you get any residuals or anything for
Nothing.
each of those?
There's
Nothing.
no money in public television.
Wonderful.
But it was nice that it was out there. We paid to do the whole thing, but it was really a passion project, and it was more sweat equity after because I shot 90% of it, except for the interviews. I was doing the interviews. But the interesting thing about that is that I would get emails at like 2 or 3 in the morning because it doesn't run all at the same time.
Oh, right.
So I get an email at 2 in the morning from some guy in Utah that's a veteran. He goes, I just saw the last 20 minutes. Where can I get that?
Yeah.
And they would find my name from the credits. And so that was an interesting way to keep in touch with that. And then it was submitted. We submitted it for an Emmy 2018. And it was nominated for Best Documentary and Best Photography, and it won Best Photography. So that was, again, helpful. And the important thing that it did for us was that was kind of our first foray into original programming. And because that went well, then that kind of opened the door, let VPM know we were on the map. And, Pam being a talented producer, she immediately wanted to do one of her ideas, which turned out really well. It's called Aged Out, about the foster care program in Virginia. And then after that, we were offered to do a art program for VPM locally, which we did for 2 years.
Right.
And loved every minute of that.
Footnote.
That show on VPM was called The Art Scene, a magazine-style show that celebrated fine arts, performing arts, and arts education in Central Virginia. Todd's wife, Pam, was the managing producer of the series, which ran for 2 seasons, while Todd was director and editor. I remember I helped cast that.
Yeah, but it really was transformative for us as a business, Blackbird was, because it was just kind of like following, what you wanted to do. And you think, you know, kids get out of school, you're going to make movies right away. Well, I'm here to tell you, it took me 25 years before I could put together something independently. But it really opened doors, and it was just life-changing in terms of, like, who knew you were going to be at a top secret facility in California? You were going to be at the CIA. And just the people that you meet, and then doing a premiere at the Air Force Academy and everything, it's really fantastic. And then over the past year, it's funny you have a contract with American Public Television because you're not getting any money.
Right.
It did a 3-year run. So when that was over, we were allowed to market it. And then Pam worked really hard and got in with the right people that get it in front of streaming services. And then they see who wants to run it. So currently it's on Apple TV, Prime Video, Google Play, and then 1 or 2 other things, which is great. That we will eventually maybe get some money from, who knows.
Right.
That's nice that it's available and it's kind of out there in perpetuity, I guess.
Congratulations, by the way, on this success of it. And I always have to ask everybody, when you're not sitting there editing at Fuel, what are you watching? What's on the agenda right now?
Oh, I will watch a documentary anytime I can, depending on what it is. I've seen most of the airplane ones that are out there. A lot of them I don't like. That was actually one reason I did it, because I felt like there's not a really good one out there.
Wow.
Like,
okay.
It was hard to find. It
Right.
would be mentioned in something. Oh, I also consume anything stream. Pam and I watch a lot of stuff. I love Severance. That's my favorite show.
I'm trying to suffer through the second season. Not one of mine.
Not yours. I figured. No, watch that.
Wait a minute. What do you mean you figured?
I figured, you know, Pam doesn't like it as much as I did nothing but talk about it after the first season. Then I waited 3 years for it to come back.
Right.
I just think it's very smartly written. And I liked it. And I always give her guff because she loved Lost. And halfway through that, I was like, I think they're making this up as they go. But at least I could tell with Severance they weren't making up. That one is almost more the art direction that I like, the sparseness of it. And it's interesting. We also watch, what else are we streaming? We finished, what's the one with the guy from This Is Us?
Paradise.
Yes, Paradise.
Started out better than it ended.
I'd agree. I would agree. That kind of did some shark jumping in there.
Yeah. And I said this in my review, because it was Dan Fogelman, he had to always stop the action every once in a while for somebody to do some dramatic emotional outpouring.
Right.
Because that's what he always did.
Point. Yeah. We watched the latest White Lotus last night, I think.
That season just not working for me so far.
Yeah, Pam, I hadn't seen the earlier ones. So she's trying to tell me, oh, that's the guy, you know.
Right.
That's Uncle Rico. We just finally last year watched Breaking Bad.
Oh, wow.
I'd never watched it. Went back, watched the whole thing, and then our son joined in halfway and loved it. Pam's friend worked on that show then worked on Better Call Saul.
Well, Todd, congratulations on all this. Congratulations on the success of the documentary, and I look forward to the next one. Do you have one, by the way?
Not per se. I've got a couple ideas floating around out there, but I don't want to dig into them too far.
Just make sure you get some money for those.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're currently doing 1 or 2 things for VPM, and I'm helping Pam out. She's got a couple things in the pipeline, but that's not for me to say.
We'll probably get her back on when they're finished.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Jerry. Great talking to you,
Thank you so
man.
much.
Thank you.
That was Todd Hervey, who produced the documentary entitled Blackbird, Legacy of Innovation, about the famed SR-71 plane. This film included recording the installation of the Blackbird that's hanging at the Science Museum of Virginia. The documentary is now streaming, and I'll include links on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Death of a Unicorn. This horror comedy starts after a father and daughter hit the titular creature with their car and take it to the retreat of a rich pharmaceutical CEO, with Jenna Ortega, Paul Rudd, and Richard E. Grant. The Woman in the Yard. This one is strictly thriller. A woman in black keeps appearing in a family's front yard. That much you can tell from the title. A Working Man. Jason Statham is back to kick ass. He's left his profession of counterterrorism behind, but he's pulled back in to help him find a local girl. Co-written by Sylvester Stallone.
TV and streaming.
The Studio on Apple. Seth Rogen stars as the new head of a movie studio in this satirical look at the conflict between art and business in Hollywood. Also featuring Catherine O'Hara and Ike Barinholtz, with dozens of guest cameos playing themselves, including Marty Scorsese, Ron Howard, and even Netflix executive Reed Hastings. The Life List on Netflix. Sophia Carson stars as a woman who revisits her childhood aspirations, endeavoring to achieve her old goals. Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Road Trip on Disney. This comedy follows a Mexican-American family who have recently lost their connection to each other as they embark on the titular trip that immediately goes wrong, with Eva Longoria and Harvey Guillen. Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer on Netflix. A look back at the women who disappeared from New York City and Long Island before the 2010 discovery of female remains, which led authorities to believe the deaths were connected. Amityville, Where the Echo Lives on Max. The famed house continues to haunt. Mythic Quest on Apple. The season finale plus the spin-off side quest also drops that day. Queer on Max. If you didn't see it in theaters, now you can see Daniel Craig in this artistic film based on the experiences of William S. Burroughs. You know, you can subscribe to this podcast on the usual platforms, or you can go to TV Jerry, click on the podcast tab, and there's a link to enroll. Next week, Patrick Clark will talk about the documentary he created called Leo Corey, the gay bar godfather of Richmond, Virginia, which chronicles the exploits of this notorious gangster who was on the FBI's most wanted list and was only found after he died in 1991. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sifter, including literally thousands of reviews,
visit tvjerry.com.